Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The New Normal with Lee and Chantelle.
Hello, Chantelle.
Chantelle, tomato.
Yeah.
What we got going on today?
Let's talk about having kids.
Oh, my. Okay. Skip marriage, just straight to the kids.
Yeah. Who needs marriage?
Not me.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Saves us some money.
I'm Yellowstone.
Yes. You're Beth. Nobody understands what we're saying.
Like maybe I need to give Beth her respect, okay?
Yeah.
No, I'm not Beth. Anyways, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, it's a TV show called Yellowstone. It's based on family business.
You're the little boy that shovels horse shit.
No, that's not me. Definitely not.
Okay, so I was thinking about this today, okay?
Okay. Just today?
Yeah, just today.
Okay, this is fresh.
I had a new revelation.
Mm.
Before, I always thought to have kids young was better. And then I always thought having multiple like as many generations as I can is better. Like have a great grandkids.
Oh, okay, that's a lot of greats.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But today I had a whole realization and I have changed my stance.
Well, okay, I really got to hear this. Guys, we got to hear this.
I haven't changed anything that I'm gonna do. Like it doesn't change my action, but just changes how I look at things.
Mm-hmm. Sorry,
yeah.
Your haircut is just really distracting right now. So anyways,
we're talking about having kids over here, okay?
We are talking about having kids. That's what's gonna have kids, like your haircut and your clean cut right now.
That's what's gonna get me kids.
I mean, that's just the beginning. Anyways, cringe. Let's move on.
Okay. So yeah. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it because your stance on it has changed over the years too, right? When you were younger, you didn't care about being a mom, and now you just want to be mom as quick as possible and have as many kids as possible.
Yeah, pretty much. I was like, before I'm like, I don't care about having a boyfriend, husband, kids, whatever. I didn't even think of adopting as an option because I just like, whatever, I'm just gonna work on my career, I'm gonna work on myself, and that's all I need. And then I'm like, oh wait,
yeah, I mean,
and a family is something that you cannot buy.
Let's quantify it.
Sure.
Back in the day, what would you say your ideal age to have kids is?
This is so crazy, even just to talk about. My ideal age was like 27. Get
back
married
in the
at
day,
25. Though. What's that?
Back in the day.
Back in the day.
Yeah. But then you said you didn't care to get old. That was your ideal? That seems very young. What do you mean?
What do you mean?
I thought back in the day, you're like, I don't care. I could have kids at 40, 50. Even if I don't have kids, it's fine. But now you like shifted to younger.
Oh, yeah. No, I never thought that I never thought it would be a possibility to have kids when I'm older. That's why I was always told growing up, like, oh, learn from our experience, have kids when you're younger. So that's why I'm like, okay, I kind of did the math, like graduate high school 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, straight from high school to university, get a degree, 22 be finished, 23 be finished, date, 25 get married, few years of dating, whatever, 25 you get married, few years of married life together, 27 have kids. That was my timeline.
So back in the day, if you never had kids, you were okay with it. But if you could choose, you would choose 27,
to have kids.
or you didn't even care if you have kids at 27. That was just what you when you thought you would have kids. But then if you
Yeah, that's
didn't,
when
you don't
I
really care.
that's right. That's when I thought I would have kids. But then when I, once I started getting older, I was like, oh man, like I really know that I'm not going to hit that, goal for myself or that benchmark. And life is convoluted. It doesn't work in a linear line like the way we want it to. So, like, if actually the timeline that, you know, like it's hard for me to say this because like my previous relationship, but that's why I was in such a long relationship previously because that's what I was working towards. And like I kept my word to myself and to my parents in terms of like, okay, like I'm gonna, you know, date seriously, if you will. Like if you know what I mean, like you know what I mean. But like yeah, so I thought that was my timeline and I was working towards that timeline, but then like it didn't happen that way and I'm so glad it didn't happen that way, so thank you,
But you
so
but you told me that there's a period of time that you didn't even want to be a mom. Like that's like
yeah,
before
that was
this,
end
or
of, yeah,
how about let's talk age, like between what age to what age, how you think, you know what I'm
what I,
saying?
yeah, so like hold on, itchy, so just after high school, so 18, 17, 18, whereas like I made my decision, like I did not care if I had kids or not. And then maybe like 22, 23, I started changing my mind because I'm like, okay, actually, like I'm going to school, I'm doing all these things. Like it's not all about the money and it's not all about, being by myself because then at that point I already had a relationship and I'm like, okay, why am I in a relationship? If being in a relationship means that, I want to build a family or a life with this person.
I walk through when you didn't care for having kids. Why did you not care at that time?
So in high school, I didn't care because I was so involved in like my sports and then um like I had a entrepreneur venture thing in grade 12, so I'm like, oh shoot, like I really am invested in doing this creative thing and then growing my business. Like there's a potential for me to have my own business because I've been through it for such a short period of time through school, and then I'm like, okay, after that I should really focus on that type of thing, and I need to find myself, and like, oh, guys are so dumb, like I don't want to go through the dating scene, like the stories I hear my friends go through or my peers go through, like I just didn't, like I just felt like going through a relationship would take away from me growing as my own person. So that's why I was against it, and I was like, you know what, like maybe it's just not for me to be in a relationship, like I haven't met that person, so I'm like, I'm just going to focus on me and I'm going to go hardcore. I made my decision. I don't care. And then I'm just going to go do it. And then, like, a few months after I said that, like, freaking get a message. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, okay, here we go. You know? So then I got in a relationship and I'm like, oh, that took me away from me building myself because then I focused on something else. Like, I focused on a person, not my career.
But what made you change to like wanting to have kids?
Um, I'm just trying to think about like the exact moment, but I think
No,
it's
but it doesn't have to be the moment, but like what changed in your thinking?
yeah, I think that's just it. Like I said, like why am I in a relationship with someone? And then I was like, hey, there's a reason. Like I don't just be wasting my time having a relationship, even though that's what happened. I would freaking waste my time.
You just thought that was a natural progression, but
Yeah,
you
there you
weren't,
go. I just exactly. You
but you
just said
weren't
it. Like
particularly like, I gotta have kids. It's like a thing.
Yeah, I think it's just a natural progression. I think that it's just like stacking myself up against what society, you know,
Mm.
expects of me. Um, was I sold on, oh, this is the right person for me that, I'm going to have this future with? No, not entirely. And I think that's why, like, it didn't go the way that people wanted my relationship previously to go, because I wasn't sold on the person. But now that I'm with you, and that's why you're saying like earlier, oh, now you suddenly just want to have kids as fast as you can. I think it's because like I feel that I'm with the right person type of thing. And like it's weird for me to say that too, like on here, like so publicly, because I feel like that is so like personal to me and like my decision making now, because like we happen to get together just by chance, or even just like our whole relationship is a coincidence. So
It's too late now. I don't belong to you anymore. I belong to our subscribers.
guys, did you hear that? So you need to make this shit go right.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, but yeah.
Okay, so if you could pick when your kids are having kids, what age would you pick for them?
For my kids having kids,
Yeah, like when you if you could pick the year you can have grandkids.
yeah, I think I would still say the same, around 25,
What's the
25,
re
27. Sorry, my nose, huh?
what's the reason?
I think that's just like the sweet spot, because they're like they've if they go to school and everything, if they want to go to school, I think it's just like it's enough of years after graduating high school, and whether that be taking a year off, learning about yourself, going through different jobs, going to school, like I feel like the life experience part of growing up is already fulfilled in the like 5 years or so after graduating high school.
So you're thinking about the best age for them to have kids.
Yeah, and I
But
think
but
like
what about
health wise too, like you're young enough and you recover faster.
for selfish reasons? Like when do you want them to have kids?
Oh,
You know, like do you want
yeah.
them to have as young as possible so they can have more, like so you have the highest chance of having was it great grandkids because then they're younger and then
Yeah.
they're gonna if the grandkids have kids younger, then you're gonna be alive to see a great grandkids. If they have them
Yeah.
late, all of them have them late, you wouldn't see them.
That's exactly the sweet spot. Like it's just enough, that they're young enough to have multiple kids when they're younger, just so that I could see that. But also it's like just enough as well for me to be old enough to be having grandkids. You know what I mean? Like
Do you care for them to, I mean, do you care to see your great grandkids?
it would be cool too. Yeah, I've been seeing videos like lately on Instagram or TikTok. I don't know where they're originally from, but it's similar to what you're saying. The great grandfather's there, the grandfather's there, and so on and so on. And I'm like, whoa, like I never knew that you could go down the family tree like that. But you can if they're all alive. Like that's kind of cool. Because like also it's different having a family, and you learn differently from family members compared to like other people sometimes. So like could you imagine the life lessons that the great grandfather would give the great grandson? Like that's something special that you cannot really recreate.
No,
And
no, not really. Not much you can give to them.
I think you're a little bit biased because you have a different experience, but that's what I think. Like I just think that because I'm the type of person that I can learn something from an 88-year-old, from an 18-year-old, and from an 8-year-old type of thing. Like it's just a different perspective of life, a
If
different stage of life.
if you're gonna keep doing the same things that don't change any over time, then yeah. If you're gonna be, let's say, I don't know, like uh like a government worker.
Don't
And
shit on me.
and okay, let's take a different example.
You're lucky I can't say your real name on here because I'd say it here.
what's the industry that doesn't change? You know, like
Mining.
okay, mining. If you're a great granddad in mining, you can teach your great grandson about mining, and you know it can pass down. But what do you like? How much Mark Zuckerberg could learn about Facebook from his great granddad? Like almost zero.
So that's why I think that would be cool for us because we're growing something so different. Like we literally are building something different. So it would be interesting for me to experience that from from me, not from someone
Imagine,
else.
imagine your great grandkids age difference to you is like 70 years difference, let's say. Everything you know about YouTube wouldn't be true in 70 years. I don't even know if YouTube would exist anymore. Like, how are you going to teach them
I
anything?
sure hope it does,
That's
but like
crazy.
virtually in the metaverse.
They can listen to our podcast to learn about us, to be entertained, but then like
Yeah, see, that's cool.
nothing we talk about is going to be relevant though, you know? Like
It's not going to be relevant, but it's like a history lesson.
your generation didn't the change hasn't started at your generation, so your generation could still learn something from your great uh, grandparents, but starting from our generation, especially our kids generation, things are going to start changing so fast. It's going to be a completely different thing every 20 years. You're
Well,
not
I
going to.
think it's just more interesting learning from a person than from reading an encyclopedia by yourself. Like you're a living encyclopedia at that point, it feels like.
In 50 years, maybe they could just download the information directly into their brain. They don't need to listen, they don't need to watch.
Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
But anyways, back to me, right?
Yes, you.
So my family has always been like, first of all, my parents had me young.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then their stance, at least my dad's stance and my grandparents' stance is always have kids young as possible. So we can see more great grandpa kids, you know.
Yeah.
And that's been ingrained. Is it called ingrained?
Yeah, ingrained.
Ingrained in my brain that, oh, that's the good thing. And then so I always wanted to have kids young, and then I want my kids to have kids young, so then I can have uh, the most number of generation existing at the same time. And also because my parents had me young, we had a smaller what do you call it, age gap, knowledge
Yeah.
gap, whatever gap it is.
Yeah,
Like
age gap.
when parents are too old, they don't communicate with their kids well because they live in two completely different worlds.
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas my parents, they were like learning about computer at same time when I was learning about computer, and they know what I'm doing, what I'm, you know, when I watch, like they weren't like the parents who were like, what's YouTube? You know, it's just
Yeah.
so weird. They know it, they watch it too, type of thing.
Mhm.
So I thought that was a good thing before, but now I've changed my mind.
Okay.
Now I changed my mind to, I think having kids later is better.
Why?
Um,
Oh, how late?
well, it's not an exact age, but it just my perspective has shifted. Before it was as early as possible. Now it's like as late as possible.
Are you just saying that because you didn't hit your as early as possible goal?
No.
Like you're way overdue.
No. But before I thought like being close in age between parents and kids were a good thing, but now I think it's the opposite. Now I
Well,
see it in the opposite way where parents are supposed to be older, and then you have kids, um, like the age gap is supposed to be a little bit big, and then I I want my kids to have their kids a little bit older too. So then I don't need to see great grandkids, just grandkids is good enough. And I heard somebody say this. They were like, so many people are so big on generational wealth. It's gonna pass down to 10 generation, 50 generation, and they still have money. And then he was like, but then by that time, they're just another person. They're not even your family anymore. Because my kids is gonna be 50% me. And my grandkids is gonna be 25% me. So by the time it gets to the great grandkids, it's like 12% me. It's like almost like distant family already. If they keeps on diluting another few generations, that person's just as related to me as the stranger on the street. Why would I care about that? So now I'm thinking, instead of like have that love spread over as many generations as possible, we should concentrate the love into 1 or 2 generations.
well, I think like the gap between the parents thing, there's its pros and cons. Like with you, your and your parents' gap is smaller, which makes it cooler for your parents to join you in activities that, older parents probably would not be able to do. So, for example, like your parents would probably be able to go hiking with you, go, hunting with you, whereas, or you go hunting with them, like with your dad, or go hiking with your mom. Whereas for me, like I can still go hiking with my parents, but it's different in the way that they're not as youthful. So not saying that they're old, because they're not like entirely old, but like that's when you can see like, oh, okay, like the body is not as strong as they were like 5 to 10 years ago. Even 5 years for people who are older makes a big difference.
Yeah, but it's probably better for you though, to if your kids can't hang out with you and connect with you all the time, then they will go out and create their world, and they will make new friends. They will find friends who will like to hike. They will, like you play your parents' role, and then they will play their kids' role to create new things, to innovate, rather than just both your lives emerge kind of
I
thing.
understand what you're saying, but I think there's a sweet spot. So like it's the way I see you and your parents, or the way I see you and your mom more so than your dad. Well, actually, no, even then when your dad is here, is that like the way you guys communicate, the way that you like operate is cool, because there is no fluff, like there's no, or maybe your guys' family is just different too. Whereas like with mine, because they're older, there's a little bit more fluff, like, oh, how's school, like, oh, how's this and that, like you said, because they can't relate as much.
Yeah, well,
So that's the thing, is that I like the thing that's, even though like like the gap between me and my parents are just bigger, but I've still made it in a way where I can communicate with them just fine, and they're like my best friends. So the way I see it with you and your mom is just like, you guys are just like brother and sister too, in a way, like the way that you joke around, that way that you communicate, it's just like, it's nice to see, it's endearing.
yeah, well, But I don't think that has much to do with the age gap. Like it
A
does a
little
little bit.
bit because some of my, sorry to cut you off, a little bit because like I have a friend who was adopted and there's a big age gap between her and her parents. And but she was adopted when she was very young, so there is no like it's not weird type of thing, but it's just difficult for her to communicate with her parents because of such a big age gap. Parents are going through like old age emotions, kind of like older people have bigger mood swings for some reason. Like that's just, yeah, like that's why you see old
They
people being
grumpy, huh?
grumpy. Yeah, exactly. So I can kind of see where the difference in age do play a part in how one is raised.
Well, but then you also see these people on TV, on like reality TV shows, where they're like, "Oh, I'm just like a sister with my mom," and you see them wearing the same thing, dressed as if they were like twins. They use same language. They're like, they look like sisters, and
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
also like too extreme. And I think that's just it. It's reality TV. Like it's not like that in real life, you know? There is gonna be a clash.
but if you're young like that, you will be like, if you're too close in generation, you're gonna like compete for the same thing almost.
Yeah, I see what you're
Like
saying.
when you are trying to find who you are, your kids are trying to find who they are, and then
Yeah.
you're fighting over the same resource almost. And it should be instead the older generation, the parents do certain things and then they pass it down, and then they're doing separate things. Like, however, what it shouldn't be like, if you own a business, you should never be the competitor of your kids' business.
Yeah.
Because you should operate in the older type of business, and they should operate. You know what I'm saying? Like, you should be operating in YouTube space, and they should operating in metaverse type of thing. It's like
Yeah.
they should be in their next generation, and then the taste in clothing, taste in culture, taste career choice, everything should be enough age gap for you two to be separated. And it's kind of like passing the baton type of thing. Like, oh, I took YouTube as far as I could, and then your generation is the starting of metaverse. Don't come in and try to do more YouTube. Take my YouTube knowledge, but go take it to metaverse.
I don't think there's anything wrong though with being in the same, it's like essentially like a business, like it's, or passing down a business to your offspring or like to your son or daughter. Like it's okay to still operate in that same space, but I think that the main thing is like the experiences that you bring to it. So
But it shouldn't be like, let's say I sell flowers. Uh, I only know how to sell flowers door to door. And then on the verge of app being developed, my kids should take over, and they should start selling flowers with an app. It shouldn't be, oh, I know how apps work too, and then I made it selling flowers work with app. I just passing down to my kids, and now my kids are using, like, you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
You can work in the same industry, but it's got to be the next generation's viewpoint, next generation technology and everything. But then if you are too close in age, you would have the same thing, just maybe slightly more advanced instead of a completely different thing.
Yeah, but that's just like that's what I would hope to work for, is like always moving forward, always having like something innovative from every generation, but every generation still stays in their lane. Like know their spot. It's kind of like this is a little bit controversial because like some women are like act your age and then some women is tries to be as youthful as possible, even though they're 60, they're trying to be like a teenager, you know? It kind of it gets a little odd the same way in that respect when someone who is their age don't act their age. Like it kind of gets weird.
Yeah, also another thing though.
Like to me personally, because like there are also some people who are a little bit older, maybe like more matured, and then they go back and they try to act a certain age. But to each their own. I'm not saying that I'm like judging people. It's just what it is.
Also another big problem I thought of today that comes with having kids young is that when you are old, when the parent is old, the kids are also old. Let,
Yeah.
as an example, if the parents have their kids when they're 20, when the parents are 80 years old, the kids are 60 years old.
Yeah.
So nobody can take care of nobody, you know,
Yeah.
like you're 80 years old, you're struggling, you need help. You can't call up your 60-year-old daughter to come help you because their joints don't work either. You know? So just from both ends, like the knowledge and the you know the resource standpoint, and also from the just natural progression, parents are going to get old and their kids are supposed to take care of them point
Hmm.
of view, there should be enough gap when the parents get old to the point where they couldn't take care of themselves, their kids are should still be relatively young,
Yeah.
like you
That's
know.
true too.
So then like each generation, like, oh, the older generation is old, they couldn't do anything anymore, but when they are old, every other generation is still active and still young enough to take care of the oldest generation. When the oldest generation pass away, the second oldest generation become the oldest generation. But there's always only one oldest generation within the family, rather than if they're all close, when the oldest generation hits 80, the second generation hits 60, and the third generation hits 40. Like everybody's old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's why I say there's a sweet spot because there's some cases where I do see that, oh, yes, they're all old, so they all cannot help each other, or oh, they're all young and, everyone acts like a child. So that's why I think, like,
Yeah, but then both problem exists in small age gap. When your age gap is bigger, that neither scenario will happen. They wouldn't act both young because the age gap is big, and when the kids are young, the parents are already older.
mhm,
And then when they get very old, the kids are still relatively young, they can take care of them.
mhm,
Yeah, and also I think I was too focused on having as many generation as possible. I see that as a like a pleasure, like a fulfillment in your life. But now looking at it, like each generation dilutes a lot of like how close they are related to you, then why care about the third, fourth, fifth generation down that's essentially a stranger? Put more care and attention to the first and second generation and raise them well. The quality should trumps over quantity.
yeah,
Why you need 5 generations when you couldn't even, if you could raise this 2 generations better, then it should, pour more effort and energy into the 2 generations.
yeah. So I don't actually have any uh like hardcore evidence or experiences that I can base upon because I never had multiple generations in one go. Like everyone kind of had like a similar timeline, so that's why my timeline was kind of similar too. But I like that, like focusing on two generations and building the quality within the family because I think that just grows for a stronger bond for generations to come after anyways. Like I'm still hearing conversations from when I was young, this and this and this happened type of thing. And then it stuck so much in their experience that it's like worth sharing instead of just like watered down conversations and or empty conversations, like fluff conversations. So I agree with you in that respect.
So speaking of raising kids well, let's talk about education a little bit.
Okay, here we go.
So I was watching Flagrant 2 a few weeks ago.
Schultz and Akash Singh. Okay.
Yeah, Andrew Schultz said he remembered one high school teacher very distinctively because that teacher has like a lot of good methods and confidence, and he managed everybody well, like even kids, good kids, bad kids, everybody listened. And then he gave an example.
That's cool. That's rare.
Yeah, he gave two examples. The first one is his teacher told the whole class, if you found out anything I say is wrong, correct me, and you get bonus marks.
Mhm.
And then he will say wrong shit on purpose to see if anybody catch it. So
Yeah.
that he encourage kids to listen more and do their own research at home rather than just listen to the teacher. And then another thing he said was, everybody in this class starts with an A. So like my intention is to give all of you an A. Everyone in this class starts with an A. At the end, if you don't get an A, then you fuck it up along the way somewhere. So it's not like starting with 0, you got to do a lot to get to A. Everybody, I treat you, all of you, like capable people. All of you should have an A if you don't fuck it up.
Yeah.
And then I just heard that. I was like, those two things made so much sense to me. But at the same time, I was impressed because I never heard that. It's so rare. So that caused some concern to me, because I was like, why would something that's common sense, so correct, would be so rare? What it shouldn't, when I hear something like this, it shouldn't be surprising. It should be like, yeah, all the teachers are doing this. And that just made me like think back to the educational system and like kind of lose more faith in the traditional educational system. And like, and also that like Andrew Schultz is a rebel. He's not the type of kid that would just sit in the class and listen and study well, but he remembers this one teacher distinctly, and he listened, he learned a lot from him. And that also made me realize how important a good teacher is. But it's so rare to have teachers like this. And then what are you gonna do? It's
So basically, like just in the government system or like just old traditional systems, that's just the problem, is that there's a bunch of people who I wouldn't say they're older, because it's not even like they're older, they're young. It's just the way that people were brought up and the way that they continue in this system and not challenge the way, people think or how they can move learning forward. Because now children they think in a different way. They're just less focused, they're consuming different content. And if they were to revamp the way that they taught, then maybe more kids would listen and comply to trying to learn something, or even just learn the things that they're just interested in. Because right now there's so many subjects that you're forced to learn even though you're not interested in them. So it's rare. It is rare. I think only the teachers who challenge the way that they teach and or the way that students reciprocate, sorry, or like just try to learn what they're trying to teach is good. And so I think the main thing here is not necessarily the system, because we know that we can't change it. It's the upcoming teachers who want to be better at their craft, better at teaching. um Maybe they could have a group where like, okay, like what works with your students, what doesn't work. But also the problem is like who's to say who's wrong or right, right?
Well, but the problem is, you know, that the good teachers are very rare, but then they are so important in building a kid's. Then what are you going to do with your kids if you know this is like one of the most important things to them is to have a good guidance in life.
Yeah.
But then by sending them to school, their chance of having good guidance is practically zero. It's like
Yeah.
if Andrew Schultz never encountered a teacher, I don't know where he would be today.
Yeah.
That's how important that was. But then he just got lucky that he ran into that teacher. Are you gonna, bet on the same luck with your kids? Just send them to school and hope that they're gonna, meet a good teacher. If they don't, they don't.
I
Because the
think
chance
like,
is so low that teachers like this are so rare. And I don't, it's like, it's very frustrating because it sounds to me like this is common sense. Why is not common sense applied in anywhere? This is crazy.
it's because it's like teachers go through a program and teachers are taught the way to teach. That's what I'm saying. It's like it's a system, like that's just the way it is. And knowing that and the reality of how the school system is, I would just challenge my kids to, go through that system if they, well, also I don't know yet because I didn't really make a complete decision, but I am open to different ways of learning now because I can see the like I can see the positives or the benefits that come out of it. So like in this case, if I were to put my kid in school, I would be like, hey, just so you know, this is the hard cold truth about school because I've been through it. But now that you know that kind of thing, how would you navigate through it? And like for them, if they're older, if they're younger, I
They
would.
can't. That's the thing. It's like,
What do you mean?
for example,
They can't what?
they can't navigate. They don't know what they need. Like when the teacher instill confidence in them, they didn't know they needed confidence. They didn't know. Like as an example, you always struggle with self-worth and confidence.
Well, try.
Okay. And I struggle with it too. Okay.
Don't be trying to play in the same playing field because you're recovering.
That's why I know how hard it is. Like I constantly doubt myself and I try to but this is an ongoing process. You know how like you you've been lacking confidence for 10 years. It's just for example, right?
Yeah, just for example.
And then even if
Just
you
make that clear.
yeah, just a hypothetical, okay? But even if you realize you should be confident and you Google and YouTube and all of these things, it still takes you maybe, I don't know, 2 years to build your confidence. And then after that, you still got to continuously build it so that it doesn't diminish. Because you can't just build confidence in 1 year and then you got it. Because the doubts and the all of those things are gonna come back. But imagine if you had a teacher or two over 2 years when you were in your teenage years, when you didn't have your identity set fixed. They gave you confidence. Like this teacher says, everyone starts with A. All of you are equal. All of you are good enough. All of you are, you know, like all of these things. Out of high school, you're gonna have solid confidence that you can carry with for the rest of your life. But at that time, you don't know that you needed it. But now you're screwed up. Now you don't have confidence and you don't have self-worth, and you can't get that back by working on yourself for just 2 years. Now it's a lifetime problem now. You know what I'm saying? Like it's kind of like I don't know, addiction or something. Like if you didn't get into addiction when you're in your teenage years, most likely you're good. But then if you get into addiction in your teenage years, then you're screwed for life. It's always going to come back and haunt you. Even if you stop drinking, stop smoking, all of these things, it's still a lifetime like commitment. Now you constantly got to think about it, work on it. And so that's how like important it is. But then they don't know, the kids are not going to be in school and get scolded by the teacher, and then they say, oh, my teacher is tearing me my confidence down, they're not helping me to build my identity. I need to find someone who can build my confidence. Like they're not self-aware like that, and they don't even know they need it until it's too late.
So with that, like there's two separate things then. For teachers,
Just quick question. If you had a teacher like that during your high school, how big of a difference do you think it would make on your life?
I think it would make a difference, but I don't know how big the difference would be.
You don't
But
think
I can
you
also
you don't think you would mostly eliminate your confidence issue?
probably not. I
Hmm.
think it's like everyone is different in how they take information. So that's why I think like with what you're saying, because I had good teachers like growing up and in school. And I had one teacher in particular that believed in me a lot and even wrote it in my yearbook. It was like, you've got a bright future type of thing, and then you can do what you put your mind to type of thing. And he doesn't say that to anyone else. He doesn't write that in anyone else's yearbook. I think he only did my yearbook because I went out of my way to look for him and asked for him to sign my book type of thing. But I also did well in his class without trying to do well in his class because I messed up also in his class, which is like kind of like ironic. But anyways,
Yeah, if you didn't have any teacher like that growing up, like how much worse do you think you would be?
so going back to that, it's just like with teachers, they're there to teach you like a lesson, like a subject. They're not there to parent you. So that's the main difference, is that with a confidence and all this stuff, everything for me starts at home with the parents. So if I know before my kid goes to school that I kind of like parent them, build their confidence in a good way, like that would stick with them throughout the day, then I know I'm doing my job, because that's not the teacher's job. I'm not going out of my way to pay the teacher to say, hey, listen, you need to teach my kid this, and this. I put my kid through the school system because I want them to learn math. Whether or not how they learn math has to do with
Math
anything.
math is not important.
I'm just giving an example of going through the school system, because you're saying, like, what if your teacher doesn't say, any of that stuff? Like, you start with an A. I think that teacher who Andrew Schultz met just had really good parenting skills and decided to put that in his or her curriculum.
Like if you know this, okay? If your parents compliment you on your dress, let's say, it's almost completely irrelevant if you go to school and then other kids laugh at your dress.
I understand what you're saying.
You're gonna feel ashamed. as parents, you can't be like, oh, but I complimented you on your dress. I did my job.
I
Like
know, I understand.
you have very little impact if you don't consider schools. Your kids are at school most of the times during the day, and then they value their peers and the teacher's opinion a lot higher. It's whether you hype them up or tear them down a lot more directly. You can't be like, oh, like I teach my kids, you can be anything you want, you're smart, you all of these things, and then they go to school, teacher tear them down, and then you can't be like, oh, I did my job, and and then also it's not teacher's job to build them up. It's so much more important for kids to develop values and character and all these things than learning math. Like how easy it is to learn grade 3 math, it's
Yeah.
like what does it do?
And so that's why I was put in extracurricular activities, because that's not where you learn how to build character or all of this stuff. You know what I mean?
And then what if the teacher does the best job according to you? They teach the kids all of the subjects and they became a genius in science, but their values and principles and character are all screwed up, and they become an evil genius. That would harm the world a lot more.
I think that just has to do with the teacher itself then, because whether or not they're a good teacher, I can't dictate whether they're a good person or not. So
But as a parent, how are you going to ensure your kids get the best education? Like
that's
now
why I
knowing
said,
now knowing that how important that is, are you gonna just like put them through the regular system and then be like, oh, if they turn out to be fucked up, it's teacher's fault?
no,
Like,
that would be my fault as a parent, but that's why I'm saying that I am aware of how these things work and how the school systems work. Um, and I'm more now, because knowing that, I'm more open to different alternatives, whether it be like going through a different type of school where it's all open, whatever they're interested in is what they're going to deep dive learn, like similar to Elon Musk school that he built, or homeschool, so that they go through school 4 hours a day, get their things done, and then they're free for the other 4 hours of the day to do whatever they want to do. If they want to deep dive into a particular subject or have an extracurricular activity that they're passionate about, or go through the school system, public or private. I don't know yet. And I think it's something new that more parents are starting to critically think, because they're seeing the negatives of putting their kids through school. But also, that's the thing, is that there are positives with kids going to the conventional school system, like talking to other kids and like, doing activities that they normally wouldn't do if they were at home. Or so I'm not sure yet.
yeah,
But I
that
know the most important thing is that while kids are at home, they have to build their inner self before entering the outside world, just simply because of that, because there's so many external factors that can sway the way that they think and the way that they do things, just from a what's the word now, I'm losing all my words today, superficial validation from other people.
like external.
External, I mean, it could be superficial, but like external validation, like especially now when I learned, like, okay, like everything comes from within. Like, to society, you could do everything so perfectly to whoever says, life should be lived this way. But at the end of the day, if you're not satisfied yourself in what you do, then there's a problem. And so it always has to start with within, then from outwards. So that's why I say, like, the kid has 5 years of their life growing up with their parents. So I would hope that those types of skills are instilled, or behaviors are instilled within them before they enter any kind of external environment that may change the way that they think.
5 years is not nearly enough, though.
I know it's not enough, but like,
You could believe you can be an astronaut for 5 years until when you go to grade one and your classmate made fun of you for wanting to be an astronaut. Just takes 2 minutes for you to just shut that idea down.
well, that's life. So they need to learn how to figure it out. Nobody is going to go through life just perfectly. Like, no one's going to say anything bad. No one's, that's the way it is. So build thick skin from the get out of the kitchen.
But you're setting them up for failure.
How do you set them up for success? And how do you see things? What are you going to change about? Or how do you plan to raise kids?
I don't know, but this is gonna be my probably number one priority is to
Yeah, this
figure
is your
out
forte.
how like everything else will subside, like their academic fall behind and all of that is kind of not important to me. Like,
Yeah,
but building a solid mental, like, I don't know what you call it, worldview, uh, uh, like,
self-discipline,
yeah,
character.
yeah, like character principles are the most, like they could be 3 years, 5 years behind in academics. If they can build a solid mental, I wouldn't worry about them.
I would like to have a good balance.
No, but it's not a like 10 years ago, you had all the tools, all the everything to start YouTube, but you never started. But now, what's the only thing that's changed is your mental, like how you view things, how you grounded, how grounded you are. And now learning how to do YouTube is not that difficult once you have the mental part down. The same thing if a kid is like, no, they have big goals, they don't get deterred. Is it called deterred? Deterred easily. They work hard. They try to be creative. And if they have all of these things, learning math and like especially grades 1 to 10 or whatever, math and English shouldn't be a problem. I heard a lot of kids learn how to read by themselves at home without parents teaching them, just reading on iPad and books and whatever.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Do you think it's about how the kid is built and their personality that enables them to do certain, because there are many kids who cannot do that. No matter what situation you put them in, any perfect situation, they're not proactive about or take initiative or have those behaviors. Whereas kids who are built like that, like being proactive, taking initiative to learn, all of this stuff.
Well, everybody is gonna take initiative in the things they're interested in. It's just kids are built to be interested in different things. Like I believe all the kids have the capability to learn to read on their own. It's just not all the kids are interested in reading. So it should be your job to develop the interest in them to read.
Sorry.
Yeah, like also this I realized recently too is that your heroes as a kid is very important to you. Like thinking back, like who I looked up to is a pretty big factor in how I turned out to be the way I am today. But then with me, it's kind of luck, like because I look at TV characters, I look at novels and the characters in the books and movies and stuff, in games or whatever. But there's one intentional example is that essentially the CEO, but then she's not CEO of SpaceX. So Elon Musk is the CEO, but then she handles most of the operations at SpaceX. And she told the story that a lot of parents tell their kids bad stories about like monsters and whatever Disney stuff, right? Her dad's bad stories to her were all of the scientists. Like her dad would tell her like stories about Isaac Newton or Einstein and all of these people. And then she, growing up admiring scientists, became a scientist herself.
Hmm.
Became a, I think she's majoring in physics and engineering or something. As a female in an engineering school, that was very rare. But then she always remembered this. And also, I think it was her mom was an engineer or something, and always told her, "You can do it. It doesn't matter if you female. Like I did it," type of thing. And I think that contributed a lot to her being able to do what she did.
Hmm.
How I can replicate it in my kids, because every kid is different, like you said.
Yeah.
Like they're interested in different things and whatever. But I believe in discovering what they're interested in, develop it, and like just like different education for different kids rather than, oh, today is, grade 1 math, everybody should learn the same math. I don't know how to do it, but recognizing this is important is a good first step in finding out a solution, because most people are not even looking for this. When they see their kids like, confidence getting destroyed and looking up to the wrong heroes, that's things like that, they don't even pay attention. They don't think it's important. They're like, that's how I grew up too. It's, you know.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm excited about in terms of like being a parent and or having kids is like trying to figure that out with them and like support them in that discovery. And in terms of like the confidence and stuff, yeah, there's like different perspectives and different ways to look at things. One thing that I saw is kind of like there's this kid and her dad, and she was in a like a roller skating race or something. She was doing really well in the beginning, but she fell and she started, you know, um getting behind in the race. And instead of the dad being like, oh, okay, are you okay, like get up and all this stuff, he's like, come on, get up, go, 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 like there's like two different types of parents, and I want to be the type of parent that's like, why put any attention to them getting hurt if they know that they can still keep going, type of thing.
Also, looking up to a like great person, great hero, gives you a grander worldview. If your kid's worldview is based on classmates and teachers, that's just how big their world is gonna be.
um
And
you just reminded me of something, sorry. Yeah.
like, but then and then a lot of people think, oh, kids are too small, they're too dumb to understand this and to know this complicated world. But then I think it's important for you who know there's a bigger world out there, to tell that to them. Like instead of telling them, oh, you can be the best in your class, no, tell them you can be the best in the world. While chasing being the best in the world, then naturally they're gonna be the best in their class as like a easy stepping stone. Whereas if they chase being the best in class, they will struggle still. And then they will, like, their confidence wouldn't build. And then they will be like fifth, 10th in the class. And then they will graduate, go to university, and then they will fall to the 100th and 200th. And they're like, wow, like I've been competing against kids who are not that good. And I thought I was in the middle. Turns out I'm at the end, and then they would destroy their confidence even more.
Yeah.
Rather than that, like keep a worldview, like getting beaten by our peers. Like if you play a sport, getting beaten by other people in your local school, like if you keep a grand worldview, like, oh, I'm joining the Olympics, I'm gonna be a world champion, even getting beaten by your peers wouldn't be as scary. You're like, oh, that's just that's such a small obstacle in my long journey into being the Olympics. But then if that's all you see, it's a problem. You know, like
Yeah.
same thing with academics. The best they can get is 100% in class and the A plus or whatever is the equivalent here. And that's nowhere near the best they could do if you look at it from a like a real world perspective. There are kids who are doing, like, if you are just a relatively smart kid in grade 1 and you get 100%, but what about the kids that are doing like quantum physics, like at the same age, and then you think, oh, no kids are smarter than me in the world, so I don't have to work that hard, I can pull back a little, I will get 98% still. That's a problem, you know.
Yeah. What reminded me earlier, what you were saying is that that's why I'm like also excited to have kids and travel with them and see the way that they learn and the way that they view things, and to let them talk to strangers or let them talk to people that are outside of like our circle and things like that, because then that's where the true learning starts. Um, and I don't think like any school system or anything could replace the learning of like traveling and meeting different types of people. And to exactly your point, where it's like they're just going through, like it's just a different experience.
Oh, that actually remind me of something else.
Perfect.
Is I heard multiple stories like this where they're like big investor now, like big stock investor. They invest in stocks, and then they talk about the story of how they got into stocks. They were like, "Oh, my grandma bought me 2 shares of Apple stocks when I was like 5 years old,"
Yeah, that's
and
cool.
they were like, "I've never sold it." They held it for like 30 years, but then they were like, "That's when I realized, oh, like these companies I'm seeing, I could actually own," and then get them interested. And there are stories I heard their dads would bring them to like the CEO of companies and talk
Yeah.
to the executive. And then after the dad talked to the executive, he would turn around and ask his son, what question do you have for the CEO? And the kid would have a like a equal playing field conversation with the CEO and asking the CEO about his business.
Yeah.
And that's when they were like, I don't know, 7, 8 years old. And that built their worldview on thinking on this bigger playing field. And when they see a business, they think about, oh, how's this business run? Are they profitable? And that puts everything they learn in school into perspective too, and helps them to learn. And most people would be like, oh no, like what do they know? You know, they're too young to understand complicated business. They should just learn grade 1 math, and you know, in high school they should work as an entry-level worker, and at 20 years old they should be a manager. 30 years old they should be able to talk to a CEO. When they're 30 years old they can't understand.
Yeah.
But I think that
Experience.
that's backwards.
Yeah, experiences like that must be stronger and must drown out all the other noise, that when they go to school they know what the real world is like. I would never want to impede my kids on learning something that is valuable for their age. I think like I want to put that into context because I don't want my kids learning something that they're not in the right lane for, you know? There's some information, there's some topics that I think is not healthy for them to learn at a certain age, because that also, no, I'm serious. I think it also deters them from uh the innocence, like learning from I don't know, just like they get distracted with nonsense stuff
Yeah,
that doesn't add value to their life whatsoever at the age that they're in. So I just want to put that out there too.
like you asked me earlier how I can do that, and one of this is alone is not enough, but then one of the ways I would is constantly talk to them about a world that's bigger than they know. Even if they couldn't understand it, just
Mm-hmm.
put that in their head,
Yeah,
knowing
preface
that
them.
like you are, like you are like, you're good enough, you're like powerful enough to be equal as all of these people type of thing. Like other parents would take their kids to Disneyland and be like, oh, this is a whole different world and so magical. You're like, almost as like a message to the kids is like, they are magical, you are nobody, all you can do is experience this. Whereas me, I would tell my kids, this Disneyland is created by somebody no better than you, and you can own it today if you want to.
Yeah, I would take the same approach. I would say, hey, like we're going to this place. This is the man who built it, you know. These are all the rides, and this is the reason why there are rides and blah blah blah. I wouldn't necessarily say that you're better than, or like there's an even playing field. I just want to inspire them to show them that, hey, listen, this guy did it. And he took it's like it was all his imagination. Like, do you have an imagination? Yeah, you do. Okay, cool. You can maybe build something like this someday, but not like this. Maybe yours is better because you have a different imagination. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of similar to yours, but not as aggressive.
Yeah, but like Disneyland, it's public company. You can own it. You can literally own it. And I just want to teach them
Oh, okay. From that, yeah,
like
obviously.
like Disneyland is no better than Starbucks, and Starbucks is no better than Costco, and then
Yeah.
Costco is no better than the toothpaste you use. You like your toothpaste, you can own it if you want. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to just put in like you're just a little like vulnerable little kid like surviving in this big world with um what do you call it, tornado that swirl you around and you have no control over yourself, and wherever they take you is wherever they take you.
No, I think there's context to it too. It's not necessarily like, oh, this is the big world and whatever. Like kids still have to go through learning experiences and going through awkward phases in their life and like all of this stuff. But from an information point of view, yes, they can learn things that are more worldly and talk to people that they normally wouldn't talk to, instead of just like, oh, like, yeah, you can only talk to your 5-year-old friend because you're 5 years old. Like, no, there's no restrictions on that.
It's what I'm talking about the business, but it's kind of equivalent of if they're into basketball and you show them NBA players playing basketball and be like, watch how those guys play. If you really want to, you can be in there, you can play like them too. They're no better than you.
Yeah, instead of that "no better than you" like phrase, I would just say like, oh, do you want to play with those guys? Look, like they play so well, like type of thing. You can
it's
do that too. Do you know what you have to do that? Yeah, let's go train. Let's go to a camp. Let's go do this, instead of, you're no better than them or they're no better than you. It's kind of
yeah.
like there shouldn't be a comparison. It's always should be like, okay, you do your best, and maybe your best would be able to beat them no matter the age gap, no matter whatever restrictions anyone puts on you, type of thing.
But there's this like common misconception of the world is built by a different tier of humans that are better than you that you'll never be able to reach. That's
Okay,
what
coming from that perspective, if you
that's
don't even introduce them to the different tier, if you just say, hey, like they're like you too, oh, you do the same thing, you play the same sport. That's why, like, for me, people say, Chantel, do you get starstruck? I'm like, no. What do you mean starstruck for what? They're literally the same as you and me, except their thing is just more public. Like, you see the craft that they do. I think the same as CEOs. Like, CEOs are cool too, I can talk to them, but they just do things different than what you do. Like,
All I can
We
say,
go home, we go to sleep, we eat every day, we take a shit every day. Like, what are you starstruck about?
all I can say is your confidence manifests in different ways. That's pretty weird,
Mine?
but that's okay.
Mine?
Yeah.
I don't
Sometimes
have
all of a
anyone that
sudden you
I'm
have
like,
zero confidence. In other areas, all of a sudden you're the most confident person ever.
I don't know, maybe because the way I grew up. Like I always talk to like these lawyers and like freaking doctors and CEOs like business people. I don't think anything of it.
How can you not think celebrities are better than you when they're on the media all the time and you don't think you're good enough for YouTube?
It's a
That,
mental
the
thing,
math don't
but
add up.
also because like see, like I know that their life is no different than mine. It's just all put out there. What are you judging me for?
Anyways, let's wrap it up.
Anyways, do you have anything else to say?
Nah.
Are you excited to have kids?
Um, I don't know. Excited is the word. Anxious probably is the word.
Anxious?
Anxious
Why anxious?
because every move you make and every sound you make could change their entire life, and there's no retrying. There's no second attempt, you know? If you screw up their life forever, then that's it.
Hmm. Yes and no. I mean, they have their own brains. So, like, even if you do make a mistake by chance, you didn't mean to, they're not gonna like
That's not
void their
how
whole life.
not how it works. If you think back, if you think back on
There's
anything,
so many kids who get bullied. Like, I was a bully and have been bullied. Like,
but
it's
not only
not,
bully though.
huh?
You told me your cousin or whoever ran over your feet.
Oh, we're not gonna talk about that, Carino.
You still remembered
We're
it to
we're
this
gonna cut
day.
that post.
No, no, no cutting post. But you
This did
still,
happen. My cousin ran over my foot by
yeah,
accident.
yeah. Well, but my point
I'm
is,
fine though.
yeah,
I
that
can
is,
walk. Nothing
yeah,
was broken, if you were
yeah.
wondering. If you cared,
No, nobody cares. But
I'm not special.
the point is, you weren't like, oh, they didn't mean it, so I'm gonna forget about it. No, you remember to this day. You're probably gonna remember it till you're 80 years old. And those things happen like a lot, you know. That's just one thing. There's like many, many things that you
Yeah,
happen.
but it didn't ruin my life. If anything, it made me better. Now I react to things a little bit better, and like I think back and I'm like, oh shoot, like I went through such a
But that just by luck didn't ruin your life. It could have happened in a different way that would
well,
have
that's where my
ruined your
kids
life.
need to know that they have the power to change things. If something bad happens, like your whole life is not over. Okay, you get through the hard time, pick yourself up, and you keep going. What's the problem? Like,
Nah, nah. Oh my goodness.
yeah, you need to
Such
build
a
some thick skin on these kids. Life is not a merry-go-round. It's a freaking roller coaster. So be ready for the ride when you get on.
yeah, well, they should get on a ride and handle all of the things when they are like older. When they're younger, their brain is literally shaping, and any dent you put on it, that might be a permanent dent in the future they can't handle. But then
But that's not
after their brains formed, then you put a dent on it, they can recover, you know?
that's not your that's not in your seat to protect them all the time. You can't be protecting them all the time. They have to go out into the real world, cross the street, look both ways and cross the street. You can't be there like, come here, come to daddy, like you can't cross the street by yourself. Like, no, one day they're going to have to cross the street by themselves. So you got to teach them how to do it. That's it.
That's pretty simple. That's a relatively simple thing. Just like I said,
Well, that was an analogy. I'm not saying that exact thing.
that's what, just like what we talked about earlier. Teaching our kids how to read is very easy, but then the difficult part is how you can develop interest in them to read on their own. But if you don't know how, and you didn't, they'll end up reading 1,000 less books by the time they're age 20, and then the 1,000 more books they would have read if you knew how to develop interest in them. It would have translated into the best university, and that would translate to being, having great achievements. Versus they never read because you don't read, they don't see no example or whatever it is,
What is
right?
this? You putting me on blast for no reason? Like,
No,
you
but
best believe when I have kids, I'm gonna be the most enthusiastic about all the shit that they need to learn. Okay.
then my whole point is a small difference you make on your kids when they're young, it's going to manifest in a huge difference over the years when they grow older.
Do you
So
remember whatever happened to you in grade 5?
What do you mean?
Do you remember what your upbringing was like in grade 5?
Yeah.
Do you
And that
remember when you're in grade 4? Do you remember when you're grade 3, 2, 1? Like, there's
I
certain
can
things that,
I can
you
give
know,
you elementary examples, but one example I can give you that's related to what I said earlier is in China, nobody gets complimented in education. If you get 99%, they will be like, what are you
what happened
missing?
to the 1%?
Yeah, why didn't you get this? How did you get the 1% wrong? Type of thing. And that, I think, I still carry to this day, that I don't think I'm good enough for certain things. And also made me think small, like, oh, 100% is the best. I never thought, like, until recently, maybe a few years, like maybe till 3 4 years ago, I never thought I could own a company as big as Apple, as big as Tesla. I can be a shareholder. Like, that's equivalent of owning a small business myself, type of thing, Like, I never thought, oh, I'm just same as a Steve Jobs and Elon Musk,
That's very different.
and that's what Steve Jobs said. Steve Jobs, you know why I keep saying, oh, no better than you, no better than you? That's what he said. He said, don't think the world is built by people that are better than you. One day when you realize the world is built by people who are no better than you, the rules are not rules. The rules are just made up and they are not real. And then you can go out and create something new that might be better than everyone else. Then you're starting to live life. And that I didn't learn until like in recent years. I always were trapped into this, like, wow, you can get it 100% in school, you're the best student, you must be like elite, of the world. This is like
Yeah.
no better. Like, to me, this is how when I was young, this is how I equated things. I'm like, I look at CEO of Apple, CEO of whatever, I equate them to the A students in my class. I'm like, this is natural path this A student is going to get to. A
Yeah.
student in elementary is going to become A student in university. A student in university is going to become the best CEO in the world.
No,
But
it's not
then,
always like that.
but then a lot of billionaire CEOs drop out of university. I didn't even know.
Yeah.
Like
I
a
think
lot.
it's just,
There's like so many examples like that I can name you that like affected how I live,
I
how I
understand.
carry myself, how big I think, like what goals I would set. Like, there's so many things. Even just having kids, I told you earlier, like how my parents and grandparents' attitude towards having kids young without any reasoning just made me naturally want to have treat it as a good thing. But now recently I realized, now I reason with myself, I'm like, oh, that might not be a good thing. Why would I care about fifth, sixth generation down when they are just 1% of my genes? This is 1% related to me, you know. So yeah, like even unintentionally, I don't want to pass any attitude or worldview or mentality or perspective that might be harmful to my kids, or like they will hinder their growth. They could have grown to a certain magnitude, and then I kind of brought them down,
Yeah.
even unintentionally. If I, as their dad, right, they see me as like the smartest, strongest guy
Mm-hmm.
in the world
Mm-hmm.
because that's just who they know. If I say, oh, I can't do that because that's for people who are better than me, even if I'm talking about myself, they will naturally like take that in as, oh, my dad is the strongest, smartest man I know. Even he thinks he's not good enough. For sure, I'm not good enough, and they will never, you know. It's a lot of things like that. It's like big, small, intentional, unintentional, and that it makes me anxious that like you don't know what effect it's gonna have on them and how big, and you know, and then you don't get a second chance. Like if you plant a seed, if like you were talking about physical harm, like I'm less worried about that. If their feet get run over, they're gonna, doesn't matter, you know. They get bullied, it's like whatever. But if something like plants a seed in their head that change the way they view the world or the way they view themselves, is a big problem. You know, not necessarily a big problem, but it's going to be has a very profound effect that's going to compound over time.
Yeah.
And not knowing what those effects are, and not knowing what you're putting in your kid's brain, because you don't know what they're taking in, your tone, your attitude, your like all of these things. It's you know, makes me anxious.
That's why I'm working on myself so much,
Yeah.
because I know I'm just like, I don't want to be that kind of parent, that is just like does not know how to parent, or does not know how to, be a good role model, or just not know anything.
Oh, that's the problem. There's nobody knows how to parent.
Yeah.
You cannot learn this from anybody.
Yeah.
So you
But I
gotta,
can build the way, and I can, kind of figure out how I want to parent, and hopefully, like, I believe in myself enough that they'll turn out well.
yeah, that's the part that makes me anxious, is if there's a way, if there's a textbook on how to be the perfect parent, then I'm okay with it. You know, like I wouldn't be anxious because I know this is the right way. Even if I make a mistake, I know the extent of my mistake and how much harm I've done and all of that. But then the problem is like not quantifiable. Even if I did the best job I could, there's still so many creative ways that nobody else knew about, but that I could have created, that would still bother me.
Well,
You
life
know,
is not perfect. You're not perfect. So,
because through going to school, through going to work, all of these, you know, quote unquote authority figures have pretty, you know, I have mostly disappointed me. I have the people who I thought knew about subjects didn't actually know. You know, people who I thought knew about business didn't actually know. So, and then through this past few years, people who I thought knew medical knowledge didn't really know. So now I'm questioning parenting the same way. Everybody who teaching parenting, who are teaching kids, who are in education systems, I don't think they know how to parent either. So now I have nobody else to rely on but myself to create a new way based on my, knowledge, experience, and all of that. Since it's a new way, there's no measurement and there's no, there's the potentials are limited. I could do 10 times better than any other parent in the world. I'm still thinking, is there 100 times better way? Is there 1,000 times better way? If I gave them the 10 times better way, and then 5 years later I figure out 100 times better way, I would it will bother me. It's like the one shot. It's kind of like in China, what determines which university you go to has nothing to do with your social, volunteering experience, how well you did in school. Nothing matters but one exam. That one exam determines which university you go to, and then in turn determines your fate, essentially. Excuse me. But anyway, so the point is, I feel like I only got one shot in raising my kids to the ideal situation that I want to raise them in, but I have no guidance, no measurement, no prior experience, and nobody to look at. But I gotta try one brand new method on them to get it right. And I only have one shot and there's no second chance. That's why.
That's fair. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see when we get there because, things can change and perspectives can change, and you never know if there's something that comes out in technology that you're like, oh, I don't need a parent anymore. You just program it here and then the chip goes in. So, well, we'll see when we get there.
What if the technology is mature enough for you to program your kids? Would you program your kids?
That's a whole different topic. I like off the bat, it's like I'm fighting between how much do I want to move humanity forward. If that's even humanity, then it's just robots.
No,
Um,
not when they're kids, but before they're born, they can go into the genetics and then modify, like make them a little taller, a little
no,
smaller.
I'm good.
I
I
think
want to see how my kids turn out.
you don't want
My
designer
baby.
babies.
No, that takes away the fun out of it. When you go into the machine, you make the kid, you don't know what you're gonna get when they come out. That's what's half the interesting thing too. Like, let's say we have kids. Do we know what our kids are gonna look like?
Wouldn't
No.
wouldn't you
It's gonna be
be
so interesting.
wouldn't you be a lot happier if your parents chose to edit you taller before you were born?
I mean, it would have been cool, but no, I
they,
like I
what
like the
about
way.
more practical? They edited all of your allergies out before you were born. Would you have like that?
No, like as much as I don't like allergies, I truly cherish the food that I can eat now.
So,
So
so
instead
you
of like,
so you enjoy the things on your face?
no, I don't either. No. I was
Okay.
talking about my eczema on my face and the breakouts that's been happening lately, but it's all temporary. It's the name of the game.
But if those all could have been edited out before you were born, you wouldn't want that.
Yes, I would want that. I'm not
Oh,
gonna
here we go.
lie.
I broke her, guys. I broke her.
Your every mission in life is just to break me down.
Anyways, let's wrap it up. This gets too long. This topic leads to a whole new conversation.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm
Yeah.
like, you're asking me this right now.
I
Like
was just
normally I would ask you the question back too, but at this point I'm like,
I was just gonna get a quick yes or no, but then you like you say
what's your
no,
yes or no?
huh?
Chip? No chip.
What do you mean chip?
Whatever you said earlier.
So edit the kids
Yes,
before they're
edit.
born? No,
Yes or no?
no, no,
No?
no.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Because it's creepy.
Anyways.
It's creepy. But I have no basis. So I'm pretty sure if the technology is here and the scientists might be able to talk me into it. I just got this creepy feeling, but I don't have any basis for it.
Yeah. See, it's just subjective thing. Anyways, having said all of that, and all the kids, so kids, listen up. Don't be normal, be yourself. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye bye.
Bye bye.